Welcome to CS Radio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 228 of CS Radio. I'm Jay Angelis.
And I'm Natty Leach.
Natty, you've got a spectacular podcast topic for us today. I can't wait.
I do. I am so excited and thrilled.
You've been talking about it all day.
AKA not at all.
Not at all.
Because we have no topic.
Well, I've got something on my mind.
I do too. So let's hear where you're going.
All right.
Because I was gonna lead something somewhere.
All
like
right.
we always do.
Like we always get there in the end.
So what were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking that so upstairs right now we're having a little work-study celebration.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Keep going.
Because it's the end of the semester.
Yep.
And traditionally, we would have this little party during reading days, and give students a nice lunch, sit-down lunch.
Yeah.
But the way the schedule has changed and the amount of work everyone has to do has made that untenable. So now we just have this little open house for our student workers, which has been very nice, and was nice to have a little break in the middle of the day. But you and I were also like, we got to go downstairs and do the podcast, and we got to wait till the people we need to see have come to this party, and then we got to figure out what we're going to talk about. And I got a million things open on my desktop right now, and I'm sure our students are feeling the same way. The end of the semester, closing in on them, wrapping up your classes, going into finals, thinking about what is happening this summer. If you're getting ready to start a job, maybe you're still looking for something, maybe you're getting ready for that internship, or you're going to be taking summer classes, and your mind's in a million places, and it's so easy to feel burnt out.
It is.
Is that where you were going to go?
I think it's slightly different. So what are we talking about? Burnout?
Yeah.
Just burnout in general?
Yeah, and dealing with having multiple things on your plate and how to avoid burnout. And
yeah. No, I was talking to a student about that the other day, and I felt bad because I talked about, I think there's this weird balance where there's the practical things that you just need to do,
yeah.
And then there's also the reality of what is necessary for your own mental health from an actual, emotional perspective. I think there's the practical perspective and there's the emotional perspective. So what do you need to do to actually get the things done that you need to get done?
Yeah.
And what do you need to do to make sure you're not driving yourself insane?
Yeah.
And I felt a little better with my conversation with the student because I wasn't sure I was addressing what that student needed. I wasn't totally sure from that conversation if they needed more of the practical or more of the emotional side of just venting and getting into a better headspace of what they needed to do, or do they need actual practical steps? How can I help manage and overlook the situation I'm in now to be in a better spot?
Yeah, I mean, and also when it comes to things like that, and it's a good preface here if this is going to be our topic conversation. It's a good disclaimer at the top of the show. What people need is different.
Exactly.
From the individual, situation to situation, it can be different. So we can only offer broad advice, and what you might need in a specific situation might be slightly different, and it might be slightly different for you in terms of both what you need to get done and what you need to get through it.
Yeah, and sometimes for that student, I wasn't sure from a practical standpoint, is it helpful to think about the compartmentalization of these are the separate things I need to handle and break it down piece by piece to work through?
I find that very helpful.
Which I think that's often part of what we do as advisors is we try to break down the more daunting tasks of the job search process or whatever it might be, interview prep, case interviewing, and break it down into those smaller little pieces that'll be more digestible, more things that you can handle piece by piece or day by day, as opposed to just get a job. And then where do you start?
Yeah. No, for sure. I always find breaking things down to be a great way to tackle things. And then it always feels good to check something off the to-do list. So if you break something down into components, there are more things to check off. I'm thinking I've got a little to-do list on my desk, and there's some outstanding
There's some checking that needs
there's
to be
some
done.
outstanding things that need to get done there. But again, they're things that I've just had to balance priorities, and so when I have some time, I really need to check those things off. But my day to day, those priorities shift sometimes.
Yeah. things can change quickly, and sometimes just the idea of having that mounting list can be stressful. I used to teach a freshman seminar at Temple, and we had a part about like how to manage stress levels, like resources that are available for you on campus, this is also true at Penn. There's lots of resources to help from even just like the emotional standpoint or like the mental health standpoint of talking to the counseling center here. But there are also the things like how can stress be useful for you as well. I think there's that line of sometimes stress is necessary to actually help us get things done. I'm the kind of person who I'll do things when they need to be done. And once I get stressed, I will bang them all out at once. And in some ways, that stress is good because it actually motivates me to get the things done that I need to do. But if stress ever gets too debilitating, that's not helpful in any regard. You're not going to do a good job with the items that you need to get done. You're not going to feel better after you get them done even sometimes because you might have new things pile up, and it might feel like a never-ending cycle.
It can be so difficult, and you raised a lot of things I want to jump off on because, one of the key things you said is that there's a lot of resources on campus to help people, which is absolutely true. And I think maybe for some folks who are getting ready to graduate, you feel like, oh, I'm going to lose those touchstones, those resources that I have. But, there are other resources out in the world. Some of the resources at Penn, like career services, we're always here. We have lifetime alumni services. You'll have other connections, other services available to you through Penn. But sometimes these things are available through your employer. You and I and Dustin were just talking this morning about the broad array of the employee support program here at Penn that now extends out to families who might. So your child or your partner or your parent or whoever falls into your dependents can take advantage of some of the self-help resources here at Penn. So, and I think this is something that in recent years more employers have leaned into the wellness aspect of work life as well. So there are ways that you can have those kinds of resources in the workplace too. And if you know that that's something that's important to you, it's definitely worth checking out during the job search phase what sort of resources are offered.
Yeah, and I've stressed a ton to especially graduating seniors that we serve them for life. It's kind of rare. I mean, we were talking a few episodes ago about conference season and the conference that I attended recently. And it's pretty clear when we go to those conferences usually that's pretty unique. That
it
Penn
is very
serves.
unique.
And the schools that do usually put a pretty strict limit on it or sometimes have like even money attached to it. Some of them will like charge them, we can give you services if you pay this additional fee or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of places either I think the most common is maybe you get it for a year or two.
Yeah, and then
you're done. Other places it's just as soon as you go, you're done. And then, yes, I have seen some places that will offer limited advising sessions for a fee, which, it's a great income generator for an office that sometimes needs that kind of income generated. But it can be tough on the clientele, right? But yes, so we're definitely one of only a few places that offer, with very few strings attached, lifetime.
Right now we say 3 appointments per calendar year.
Per 12 months.
Yeah, per 12-month period. We can be flexible with that as needed, especially for like a young alum who's just graduated. We want to make sure that you're finding something right out. So we'll work with you closely. But I think a lot of times when we talk to alumni who are a little bit further out, we're really good at giving that baseline, either a sounding board for the ideas that they're thinking about for that next jump in their career, or just better understanding what resources are still available to me as an alum and walking through kind of a game plan of how to move forward. And usually that doesn't take more than 2 or 3
sessions. Yeah, I mean, I think that can be stressful for the counselors as well. I feel that can be stressful. I was working with someone earlier in the week or at the end of last week, getting them set up on Handshake. They graduated almost a decade before I was born.
Yeah.
Right? So if that person's going to make an appointment with you, that means they graduated 20 years before you were born.
Yeah. And there have been times where I think like, oh, maybe I won't be helpful to this person. And I think to some extent, like, our expertise is definitely early careers.
Sure.
But we also have so much with our ear to ground on like trends that are going on in different industries. Obviously, we're very good at reviewing documents and getting people prepared. We're very good at talking through networking resources and finding the right people to kind of advance your career through better understanding of different roles that are out there. So every time I've thought, oh, I don't know how helpful I'm going to be to this alum, I always have a great conversation with them. They're really
that's
helpful
really
and thankful for the resources we're able to provide. Sometimes I'll say in advance, like I've had alum who are like, "Oh, I'm looking for board positions at this higher level." And sometimes
I was going to mention that. Yeah,
you know, that might not always be something that we have the best expertise through, but we can help with what are the resources that are networking piece that might help you get to that.
Almost always, something is better than nothing. Yeah. So, if you've been in a career for a while and you're either looking to change or you've been forced to change, it's not like you can just pick right back where you left off. It's been a long time. Things have changed.
Yep.
Resume standards have changed. The job search process. So just to be able to check in with people like us who are doing it on the day-to-day basis and say, no, this is how you would start this now, or here's where to look, and we can take a look at your resume and things like that.
I think many times like your story has changed too for whatever reason. It might be that you're in a different place now than you were the last time you applied for a job. Philosophically or by your interests, or sometimes not by choice. Like it might have been that you got let go from some place and you have to kind of pivot and think about what is best for you next. So we also do talk about like how are you going to tell that story, especially if you have an interview coming up. Like what's your about me pitch for translating the background that you have and how it fits into this next role, which depends for each alum I've talked to. Sometimes they are thrilled to continue moving forward in that same industry, and sometimes they're like, I've had enough of this field, I'm looking to kind of pivot and jump into a new one instead.
So again, that's one way that we can help relieve stress. And so one way that I always, if somebody says I'm really stressed out, I'm starting to feel burned out, top of the list in addressing that is look for the helpers, as Mr. Rogers would tell us. Look for the helpers, right? Who can I turn to for some assistance here? So just some guidance. Like you said, sometimes just that little bit of the push in the right direction is all you need.
Yeah. And we can be that, or an alum or a peer can be that. Like there's lots of people who are part of the Penn community that can be really helpful.
Or when you're starting a new job, find your person that can, sometimes that person will be assigned to you. They're going to give you a buddy. Sometimes we do that here at Penn, or there'll be an HR person. There'll be some sort of formal orientation, or maybe you just that's somebody that's in your group that's been there a year or two, and you're like, can you just give me the inside track here? What's the best way to go about these things?
Yeah, having that person can be so useful for so many reasons.
So what else? I mean, when you are, are there, so we've got people getting ready to get through this final part of this.
So the other one that's similar that I keep referencing because I've had to say it like 4 or 5 times. Students assume that we close over the summer.
That's okay. That's interesting.
We've mentioned it before on the podcast, but I have been stressing over and over again. We are open.
Yeah.
We are here, so we can do. If you're on campus, we'll have some days that we're here on campus.
So there's not you may be under a lot of deadlines right now. There might be a lot of ticking clocks on you. We're not one of them.
Yeah, and finals, coming up relatively soon in the next couple of weeks, that might be closer to the top of your list compared to some of the other things.
100%. 100%.
A lot of the conversations I've had this week are about prepping for consulting. Because the consulting recruitment cycle is over the summer.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like right in the middle of the summer and then some early fall. But that can be hard because then you have competing priorities of an internship too at the same time.
Yeah.
So I've been working towards at least getting a plan together for those people before they are done for the semester here. But we are open all summer, so I've been telling everyone that if you're in New York, you're in California, wherever you might be, we can always meet virtually.
So one of the things that I think some students might be stressing about is not only getting through these last couple of weeks of the semester, but the what's next part. And we've done other podcast episodes about this, but what advice do you have for people who are nervous about starting at a new job? It's the best way to put your best foot forward. What are some good questions to ask? What do you think about that?
So specifically from a job standpoint or internship standpoint?
Either, yeah.
So I think one that applies for both is, you already kind of mentioned this a little bit, but the relationship side of things. So I had this conversation with a student in drop-ins I did earlier today. about, especially because some people look at these rotational programs, and that can be for an internship or for a full-time job. I think sometimes when you're, or in any new job, you are learning a lot really quickly, and you're learning and meeting a lot of new people at the same time. So finding like who is your person, that can be helpful. I think when I started here, Milen was so helpful to me because she knew a lot about the systems I was working on, and she was tremendously helpful as a person who I just knew that as I had questions, even if they seemed stupid, I could ask her and she could help me with that. And I think that's one of the most helpful things. You can find an environment where like this person can be an advocate for me or an ally for me in whatever sort of capacity. It can help tremendously.
I was going to mention that I knew that Milen was that person for you. I recently went back through our episode archive.
Okay.
I don't remember why, but I was trying to figure out when we changed the theme song. And it was, in fact, right at the transition between you and Milen. I think it was that I think she only did like 2 episodes that season before she left.
Yeah.
So I think we switched it that season.
Okay.
But so in my clicking through, we did a little tribute episode to her, and the story that you tell on that episode was about being new and her being your guiding light there.
Yeah, and I think that's true for anyone finding that person. That's not always I think it's easier said than done sometimes.
Sure.
Like sometimes it needs to be the right person. But I think if you're open to trying to figure that out, or to at least open to like build the casual relationship too, which might end up leading to something like that can help you in a professional lens. It doesn't even have to be someone who's senior to you. Sometimes
not at all. Yeah.
If you're in one of these programs that hired, 50 new people coming into a company, like it might be a peer of yours.
Yeah, build your own little cohort for sure. I think you're all going through it together. That's its own kind of support, right? So you all have the same questions, and maybe somebody goes, oh, well, actually my boss filled me in about that.
Yep.
And you can say, oh, that's interesting, and I heard this, and you can be a real support for each other. I think that's real important.
I think this falls into as part of that. Having that person helps this one be easier to do. But I think the other one is just to be as communicative as you can, ask questions when necessary. Don't feel like you're on your own.
Yeah.
Because I think what I've seen more often across different jobs is the people who just take on a lot and don't ask questions are the ones that struggle
the most. I think, this feels like this plays into sometimes what we see on campus with the idea of the pen face.
Sure.
and always wanting to be perceived as on top of things and in the know, and that can be really deadly at a job if you don't know and you don't want to find out, or you don't want to ask.
Yes.
You're gonna put it on yourself to find out instead of just asking.
And there's absolutely an understanding, like you're just getting started. It's okay to have questions. I think, if the basic things you were constantly asking questions about every single time, maybe that speaks more to making sure you're engaged with the answer to those questions. But having questions is not a problem. And I think any manager, any colleague will usually be more happy to answer a question and help you with something than to fix a mistake that you make because you didn't ask for help or you didn't ask for guidance in some sort of way.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can't. Well, I can't. So I had my gut wanted to say was I've never had the experience of having a manager say to me, or be disappointed that I was asking questions. But I did have that experience, and it was really unpleasant. And and I did not stay in that position.
I was gonna say sometimes if that reveals this is not.
I had a situation once where I had a manager who I never got a real solid read on what they wanted, and so I would run a lot of things by them. And then they would say to me, you need to start making your own decisions and stop asking me all these questions and stop running little thing by me. And I said, okay.
Sounds
then
good.
I would do something and they would hate it. And they'd be like, why did you do it this way? And I'd be like, oh boy, lady, pick a lane. I don't know what to do here. So that was not great. And I didn't know how to handle that. And I think obviously their managerial style they were working it out too. I think I was that was a case where that person had worked on their own for a long time, and this was a new position under them, and I don't think they were ready to manage like that, and I didn't know how to handle that, so it didn't work out. But I would say in general, I mean, it can happen, and if you do get reprimanded for, maybe reprimand's right, but if someone's like, hey, you know, that's a lot of questions, then I think there's a couple of things you can do. One, do some self-reflecting. Am I asking too many questions?
Maybe you are, and that's what I said. Like, maybe you're not actually reflecting upon the answer to those questions. It doesn't seem like the case for you, but I could certainly see a scenario where maybe I find myself asking the same question and then realize, you know, I haven't actually absorbed.
Yeah.
Either it could be the actual function of what needs to be done, or it might be the purpose. Like, maybe I continue to ask questions because I never really understood the end goal or why this was important in the overall process of the job itself.
Yeah. No, I think that was part of it. But some of it was maybe fear motivated, that I felt like they were never going to be satisfied if I just did it on my own. And so instead of really absorbing what they were telling me about what they liked and disliked, I was just running it by them every time.
Yeah. And sometimes people will tell you, you need to do this, this, and this, but they won't tell you why you need to do this, this, and this.
Or how.
And both of those things can cause problems for both you and them in the future.
Yeah. And so another thing that you can do if you're not getting somewhere with a particular person is ask somebody else. And again, I in no way does it have to be presented as a real problem or adversarial, but you could say to someone, you know, I was trying to ask Natty about something, and I'm not getting an answer. So, do you have a sense of?
Yeah, I don't even think you have to put that first part if you're worried about like the impression of how it comes across.
Yeah, you can just say, do you have a sense of what this should be?
I'm working on this project. I'm really trying to make sure that it runs smoothly or is successful for X, Y, and Z reasons. And what do you think I can do to make it better?
I mean, I was just ready to throw you under the bus. And Natty's not giving me the answers that I need. So, and again, and there was, like we said, that's another great time to go to your peer group, because they're probably working on something similar, so maybe they've got some ideas of how to approach things, or they've gotten a better sense of what the end goal should be, or whatever it is that you're questioning. I think can be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Other thoughts? You asked when we started this line of questioning if I was talking about full-time job or internships. Do you think there's
I think going along with the relationship piece for internships is making sure you can stay in touch with someone. Now, that might be your direct manager. It might be a fellow intern. It might be someone you work closely with. That can help tremendously if you are considering working at that place in the future. You could follow back up and learn more. You only have 2.5 months max or something like that for an internship.
Yep.
So that can help you see a larger scope that maybe you didn't get a chance to see, or sometimes you have an internship on a certain team or in a certain department, and you'd rather be working in another one.
Yep.
If you find a good person to kind of like know you can have a casual conversation with, you can better ask like, "Oh, I'm really interested in working for the marketing team. Do you ever overlap or work with anyone there that you think would be interesting for me to talk to?" And they can kind of give you a soft introduction that way.
What's a good strategy? Now I'm jumping into the fall.
Okay.
All right, so I've had my internship. What is a good strategy in terms of staying in touch? How often? What's the timeline? How do I keep my options open?
I think bare minimum, think about it as like sending a friendly update every now and then. And that could be the easy way to think about it is calendar time of holidays. It could be like at the winter
That's always
season.
A good,
it could be at the end of a semester. Hey, just finished up this semester. Wanted to update you on things. Really appreciated getting to work with you over the summer. Was able to take this class, and the work that we did on this project
really came in handy.
Really came in handy. Would love to catch up sometime if you had time. Or you don't even have to say that part. You could just kind of like keep yourself top of mind in some sort of way. If all you're saying is a thank you, people will be like, "Oh, great, yeah, that's nice." They may not even respond, but still, you've at least made some sort of impression where they will feel appreciated, which can go a long way if you need to reach back out to them in the future to say, hey, I'm interested in applying. I saw that there's a position open. I'm going to be applying. Do you have any advice, or like would love to chat with you before submitting or before the interview? It'll help them feel even more comfortable to have that conversation.
Particularly at Penn, there's a lot of study breaks. There's a lot of de-stress things at this time of year, and I absolutely take advantage of them. We're having a little bit of a fun break today. We had some great food. We've got a Phillies game on in the conference room people can pop in and out of. I know that right at the start of finals, we always participate in the library study break. There's going to be goats. The career services table is always near the goats. It's very popular. I think last year we got a lot of credit for bringing the goats. We had nothing to do with the goats, but our table was there. So
we just are the goats.
So we are the goats. So things like that, even if you just stop by for a minute, can just be so refreshing. I mean, even for me, I've had a really long day today. I kind of got started on the wrong foot, and just having the couple of minutes of watching baseball really brought the turn things around, because it's just like, okay.
Staff meeting at the beginning of the morning brought you down.
Natty, this is not the time or place to talk about what my day has been like.
That's really true, and I used to kind of like the final season. It depends a little bit on your major or your area of study.
Yeah,
but I liked that it was less regimented.
Yes, me too.
So it was kind of nice. Like sometimes you had the paper, sometimes you had a final, so you had this mix of like things that you could kind of.
Yeah, there was always a mix. I mean, certainly as a as a theater major, a directing final or an acting final, that's a lot of fun.
The stage.
It's mostly fun, right? It's stressful because you want to do it right,
yeah.
But it's a lot of rehearsing and having fun, doing what you love. But it was at a liberal arts school, so I still had a chemistry final and a physics final and English papers and history papers, and I did really like that in that time you could kind of decide how to best use your time. And particularly when I was in my teens and early 20s, I could pull an all-nighter like nobody else. I mean, I was really, really productive late at night. So I could have
the Red Bulls?
No, I never was into that. And
Monster.
Red Bull was a big thing my senior year. But I just have a natural ability, or I did. But trust me, I don't really have it anymore. But I could stay up, and often later at night I could focus more easily. There was less distractions. Everyone else was asleep. There was nothing. I wasn't missing anything on TV. There's nothing else going on, so I could really hone in on my work. And I can particularly remember my senior year. I just wrote like this series of great papers that I was like cracking myself up.
So I mean, this is true for papers. It doesn't necessarily help for finals. But the idea of like bringing fun to what you do, even if it's not it can be a real yes.
And
it doesn't have to be your passion, but if you can find a way to make a paper subject or a topic fun,
yeah,
it's all the difference.
Yeah, and again, so I know that like writing wise, creatively, I'm good in the middle of the night. I'm not good trying to memorize things at night. So if it was finals time, I know that I could get up in the morning and have some breakfast, get a big coffee and sit in the coffee shop or sit in the library and try and memorize the periodic table or whatever it was I was trying to learn. I'm not a great test taker. I'm always better with an essay. But having to memorize terms, even theater terms. Theater history was a lot of tests and defining terms and fill in the blanks and all that kind of jazz. So that was like daytime work, and nighttime work was writing. And so I did like that without the structure of class, without you can kind of work to the best of your the way that you prefer to work and not have to worry about anything else.
And that helps you learn for the job place too in some ways.
It really does.
What type of stuff is helpful for me to get the projects done that I need to get done. There's a little bit more of like sometimes you have to operate in the parameters of that job. If you have a deadline or like
I'm doing very little 3 a.m. career services.
Yes,
work.
Me too. And I'm the same. Like I would stay up late. But
yeah.
I mean, sometimes it comes into play. Like sometimes I just know that if I'm here in the office and I have students all day, I'm not going to get done whatever project I'm trying to work on, and it's going to be easier to work on when I'm doing a remote day or when
well,
I have,
yeah,
like,
so
this
we've
chunk
got
of time
that
or whatever.
flexibility now that, like, well, maybe this is something I'll save to do at home or versus, yes. So I got a day, I'm going to be interrupted by a lot of meetings and calls, then maybe I should just save this for another day. But I was just talking about this with Emily Barali, who is, reports to me, and she's got a lot of deadlines coming up with data reporting, and she also has a lot of end of the year events to go to. We had the Worksday party. She was out doing tabling today, trying to get SP2 students to fill out their graduation plan survey. So she was like, so I know I got to do this thing by tomorrow. She's like, but you're getting it at 5 o'clock tomorrow. I've just blocked my day in a way that tomorrow is the day I have to do that. And I'm like, that's great. It works for me. It works for you. So learning those things and learning to take advantage of whatever flexibility is presented in your job. And sometimes some certain workplaces are going to be less flexible than others. But, to try and learn how to work to the best of your ability within that framework can be super helpful. And that can take a while to learn. You may not pick that right up in an internship, but certainly in a full-time job, eventually you'll find your groove that way.
And here's my take. I've been thinking about this. Stop putting deadlines at the end of days. What does it matter? If you're in an industry where you're not going to look at it anyway at 5:01 p.m., why can't the deadline be 9 a.m. the next day?
I don't know.
I'm not saying you specifically. And this applies to job applications, too. I don't understand why more job applications don't just have deadlines that are closer to when people who are reviewing the applications are actually going to look at them. Like, what's the point in setting a midnight deadline on a certain day when you could just set it for 9 a.m. the morning afterwards when you come into work and you actually look at it, here are all my applicants?
I don't know.
That's my call to action on anyone who sets deadlines for anything. Just set it to the closest time that when you're going to actually use the thing that gets to you. I'm going to guess that requires people to actually submit it in the right amount of time, but I would hope that these are things that you would trust the people who are giving you deadlines to get it into by the appropriate time.
I mean, some of it I think is just you've got to have a deadline, so you say.
But then why not make it a more useful deadline?
I don't know. I think some people probably feel that, like, if a job application has been open for a couple of weeks, then you've had plenty of time to get it in, and so.
But still, who cares then? Just make it 9 a.m. instead of midnight.
I don't know what to tell you.
That's my take.
I mean, I understand it because,
like,
yes.
our peer advisor applications, which are coming up,
will
be due on the morning of this podcast release, I believe, Monday morning. But I set them for 9 a.m. on Monday.
The exact time the podcast drops.
Because I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at all the applications. I don't need them to come in, Sunday at midnight because I'm not going to look at them for another 9 hours or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately.
I mean, I think that it certainly when you're doing something that's aimed at college students, such as the PCA thing, and that, as we've just talked about, there's a level of activity that happens after midnight.
And no judgment if that's when you work better.
Then why not?
And if you want to get in early, you can. We already have 40 applications for PCAs well ahead of the deadline.
So why not? Because you're right. If it closes a Friday at midnight and you're not going to look at it until 10 a.m. Monday, there's, a whole lot of hours and days there that somebody could have gotten something in, and it would make no difference to you because you're looking at it at 10 o'clock. So, yeah, I mean, it's a fair enough point. I think there is still, a certain mentality of, like, just the deadline because that's the deadline.
Yeah. And people set, like, end of day deadlines, but I think they should set start of day deadlines. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And,
we're starting a revolution here.
I don't know how, again, particularly when you're talking about hiring, it can be difficult because sometimes people look at them on a rolling basis. A lot of times people wait and get the whole packet, but sometimes things come rolling in. Even when we do hiring here, sometimes we get them in batches. It can be a weird thing. But definitely if you're waiting, then there's no reason not to give people the maximum of time.
Yeah.
Unless you're like certain unnamed colleagues of ours who are like, ooh, that's too many applications. We should shorten the window, and we should limit the amount of people who apply.
Cut them off.
Cut them off.
By the legs.
Unnamed. You know who you are.
It could be you.
Could be me, but I'm not on that committee.
It's not you.
I'm usually scrambling to get applicants to my job.
We are blessed this cycle. We have a lot of interest in.
That's got to be the most.
It's the most already, and there's still, the rest of this weekend, the weekends.
All the way up till 9 a.m.
And yeah, exactly. And that's when we tend to get the most applicants, is the weekend before.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And again, you know your audience. You know the people you're targeting, the people you want to have these jobs. And you know that the weekend is a time that they have the time to do this, or overnight. So, yeah, I think it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense.
If I say get me something by Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll get it to me by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, or you'll get it to me before Tuesday starts?
If you tell me you need something by Tuesday, then I probably would err on giving it to you by Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so by the start of the workday, Tuesday. But it's contextual. I typically, Barb's very good about, like, if she has something of me, she'll usually say, I'm having this Monday. I need this by Monday, but my meeting's at 3. So if you get it to me Monday at lunchtime, it's totally fine. Like, oh, that's great to know, right? But if she says, I really need this by Monday, I would assume she needs it first thing Monday, and so I would strive to get it to her first thing that morning.
I think that's a good example.
Our previous boss, that's what that meant for her. Pat, if she said, I need something by Tuesday, then that meant she needed it 100% ready to go for her thing on Tuesday morning. So that meant I was getting it to her on Monday.
Yeah.
So that's that's just
for
something
all the
you have to.
managers out there, be articulate about.
You have to learn about what people's needs are. It's good to give people. Yeah, like I really appreciate when Barb goes, I need it Monday by 3. Oh, well, that was a real specific. Yep. That's great.
And if someone doesn't provide that, you could always say, like, oh, would it be okay to get it to you by
also good.
5
Yes.
PM
also
on
another great lesson to learn is asking for those things, because depending on the request, I know how long it's going to take me to do something most of the time, right? So, and sometimes your manager doesn't know how long it takes to do something. I think sometimes Barb asks me things that she thinks are going to be really complicated, but I've got a saved template, and I just have to plug in some new things, and she's like, "Oh, that's great." And other times she asks for things. She goes, "Oh, you could just do that, right?" I go, "Oh, yeah, but I'm going to have to really think about that, right?" And you're like, "Yeah, you would think that would be a simple thing to compile, but I got to pull it from all these different stuff," right? So, if she gives me something complex and she says she needs it the next day, then I'm like, well, now I have to drop everything and focus on that.
Yeah.
If it's, a little bit more of a basic request, I'm like, okay, I can just do that when I come in tomorrow. So these are things that you just have to learn in the moment.
Yeah, and I think the checking in piece helps so much. I mean, I even think about it for casing. When we're doing case interviews, checking in with the interviewer can be a really good way to make sure you are on the same page, that they understand your thought process for how you interpreted a piece of information. And so I think that's true even for real life as you're going
I know we've talked about that before, but certainly in a case interview, like one of the certainly something that a pitfall people can fall into is just being quiet and thinking.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm just working it out in my head. But the whole point is to talk it through.
Yeah, or the scenario where you're taking notes and you're trying to be diligent and someone says, I need that by Tuesday, and you write Tuesday. And then you look back at your notes later in the day and you're like, wait, did I need to do this by the end of Monday, or I need to do this by the start of Tuesday or the end of Tuesday?
Right.
But saying it in the moment can sometimes help you then be like, oh, yeah, 3 p.m. or whatever it needs to be.
Right. Well, any other de-stress tips you wanna give before we wrap things up for this week? By the time you're listening to this, you're going to be knee deep in reviewing PCA applications.
Take a break. I used to go to Upstein was open till 2 a.m. and go to Quiznos and get the Kevin special. It was just the guy that worked really late, and if you asked for the Kevin special, he would just throw whatever he was feeling into a sandwich and throw it through the toaster.
Nice.
It's usually pretty good. Sometimes he went too far.
Kevin, you madman. There used to be a Quiznos where Goldie is. It was a Quiznos.
Yeah. So find your own Kevin special.
Find your own Kevin special. That can be very useful. And support each other. Like, we've talked about at length about finding a peer group at work, but obviously you've got peer groups here at Penn, so make sure you're checking in with each other, make sure you're supporting each other. Go to those study breaks together. If your one friend is really stressing out, just be like, come on, let's go pet some goats. It's worth it. It's worth it. So there's still another week of classes to go, and then there'll be finals. So I think we've got 3 more CS radios to put out this season.
Yeah, still a mysterious finale that you've been teasing that I don't even know about yet.
It's true. So as I've got something that I hope will be fun for our finale. We've got a guest coming. We've got a former career services employee coming to make a grand return to the podcast, and something else. Something else that we'll figure out by Monday or Wednesday. We do these on Wednesday. We'll do these on Wednesday. Oh, man, if we had a podcast
by Monday,
we'd be set. No, we record Wednesdays at 3, so Wednesday 2:49ish, we'll know what we're talking about. So we hope everybody is doing okay, getting through the end of classes, getting through the start of finals, and we'll see you next time on CS Radio. This podcast is produced by the University of Pennsylvania Career Services Office, a division of University Life. It was created by J. Michael DeAngelis and Amy Lynn Kirshner. Your hosts and producers are J. Michael DeAngelis and Natty Leach, and it's produced, mixed, and edited by Lorna Lynn. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at Penn Career Serve. We'll see you next time on CS Radio.